Julie Condliffe came to London from Zimbabwe. She was so broke that she slept on a pile of blankets in one of those red phone booths. Thinking back on that, she said something that resonated deeply with me. The roadblock, she said, could actually be the redirection to where you're supposed to go. Where was Julie supposed to go? Come find out. It will amaze you. Julie, welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell us your story.
Pat, it's such a blessing to be here with you today. Thank you so very much. I appreciate the time. My name is Julie Condliffe. I was born in Zimbabwe, but I came to the United Kingdom in 1998. So I've been in the United Kingdom since then. I left Zimbabwe to come to Great Britain in search of a better life for myself, a better life for my family. Born in a family of eight, the last born child. My father died when I was only 10 months old. So I saw how my mother struggled, Pat, raising eight children on her own with no access to public funds, with no help or support from anyone at all. Of course, when father died, I was only a few months old. So I can't relate in terms of the pain that my siblings would have felt at the relevant time, or the pain that my mother would have felt at the relevant time when they were kicked out of the village immediately after he was shot dead in the war of liberation that time. But what I can remember was running to school with no shoes. What I can remember was the difficulties that my family faced in terms of poverty. What I can remember vividly is the look on my mom's face. You know, when your mom is trying to reassure you that everything is okay, but you know, Pat, that it's not
Yeah.
okay. This was when she was kicked out of the place that we had now called home in Harare. She had found this beautiful woman she worked for. We called her Auntie Maggie. She'd worked for her for over 5 years, and they'd had an arrangement where mum was no longer paid any money to work. She was working so we could benefit from that home. We called it a home, but it's nothing like you and I know home. It was just like a ramshackle um, place where we built it up with wood, and then it was covered up with plastics and things to protect us from, the rain, the wind, and all the usual inclement. But we called it home because it was a place of love. We called it home because that is where we lived, Pat. So I was now old enough to know what homelessness meant. I was now old enough to know the pain of being kicked out of that place that we called home. So it was in that moment that I made a decision that there has to be some sort of justice in the world. We didn't have money to pay solicitors, so we couldn't fight for justice. So there was no justice for my mother. But I decided in that moment that I was going to become a solicitor, and that is the reason why I left my home country in 1998 in November and came to Great Britain to study, to become a lawyer. And there's a lot more that I would love to share with you in relation to my journey, a lot more about how difficult it was, before I became a solicitor, how I struggled here in Great Britain, how I would sleep in the payphone booth in London in the cold December night, not having anywhere to go, Pat, and not having anyone to tell that story because I couldn't share that vagabond experience with my family back home because they were looking to me. I was their hope. So, how could I tell them of a story of hopelessness? So, when you say to me, what is my story? That is my story. It doesn't end there, of course. I became a solicitor, super successful. So that was a big bump in the road, I think. And there are a few other bumps, but I don't want to take up all day. Yes.
No, it's a huge bump. I'm amazed that when you were old enough to recognize you were being kicked out of your home, that you didn't internalize that.
Oh, I see what you mean. I think I may have internalized it. Um, but I think it's when things happen, when life happens, of course we internalize things, but it's what we actually do with that internalization. How do we translate that? So I translated all my emotions into this passion, this desire for change, this unstoppable, this unbreakable spirit that would then empower me to be able to spend those sleepless nights in London. That passion, that determination, that would then be able to help me deal with all the other difficulties that I have faced in my life. But it's something inside that is so strong. So call it internalization, call it whatever you will, but is that thing that gives you a driving force, that unstoppable spirit, that unbreakable spirit. That's how I view it.
I think it's so hard when you're in the middle of a bump to know that there's another side.
Oh, good Lord. Yes. It's almost impossible.
Yeah,
You don't know what you don't know. But I think you have to have that driving force to propel you to continue going without knowing that you're going to get to where it is you want to get to. It's a bump in the road, it's a redirection. But at the time you think redirecting me where? This is where I want to go. This is how life should be because we all have expectations of situations, scenarios, life itself. This is how things should go. But when you get this bump in the road, what do you do? And how do you know that that which you hope for is on the other side?
you
You
don't.
don't. You
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 don't.
don't. Yeah, you're right, Pat. You don't. But that's when we use faith, which is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things that you do not see. So we have to develop that mental fortitude where we believe, because it's our belief system that's actually going to tide us over. Otherwise, if we don't believe, what are we going to do? If we don't have hope, what do we have?
I think you have to have hope. I think sometimes too, you hit a bump. You may not have that concrete direction of this is where I want to go. And yet, if you can just be present and work your way through event after event, it's amazing where that can take you.
It really is. And I think you've just hit the nail on the head there, Pat, because when I go through difficulty now, I've got a framework that I use, and it's a framework I called Arise. But the first step of that framework is exactly that. It's acknowledging where you are. It's accepting that this is how it is. I am exactly where I am. Because without that, I don't think you can move to the next step, can you? So that's important.
Talk about your framework a little bit.
Sure, thank you. I would love to. So it stands for ARISE, the acronym for ARISE. The first step is acceptance, accepting exactly where you are, not where you would want to be, but exactly where you are at that particular point in time. So that's the first step. It's acceptance because even with a roadmap, even with driving, you have to acknowledge your coordinates. You have to acknowledge where you are before you can then start the journey to where you need to get to. So acceptance is the first step. And then the next step is R for roadblocks. So you may find a roadblock, you may get a bump in the road, but it's how you view that bump in the road, how you view that R for roadblock. Is it a roadblock, or will you look at it differently? Will you look at it as a redirection? Because that detour could actually lead you to your desired destination. That roadblock could actually be the redirection to where you're supposed to get to. So it's just a matter of how do you view that? But once you've been redirected, where are you being redirected to? And I think you pointed out that how do you know? How do you know whether there's going to be, where you're going to get to? If there's a bump in the road, are you going to get to the other side? That's where I comes in on Arise. I stands for intuition, your internal compass. So if you rely on your internal compass, your internal guide, it has the answers. It has the know-how when you and I don't know. We are born with the answers inside. We've got them. But most of us cannot and will not sit with ourselves long enough or be able to quieten ourselves long enough to be able to hear that still small voice that has the direction to where we need to get to. So once we've listened, sorry,
No, I was just going to say that I think that intuition piece is
yes,
so incredibly important. And in this society, with social media and everything else, everyone is externally oriented, not internally oriented. And you have to be quiet long enough and still long enough to find that voice inside of you.
you absolutely do. I could not agree with you more. And like you said, everybody is externally oriented. Everyone has got an opinion of how things should be. But not just that, everyone's also got an opinion about you, about your life, about what you should and shouldn't do. But I don't think, with respect, of course, I do not consider that external people know us that much internally to be able to have a detailed view as to the direction of my destiny. So I should be comfortable to sit down with myself, my inner being, my inner know how, my intuition to get direction. That's it. Otherwise, if I continue listening to everybody, I'm going to be tossed left, right, and center, am I not?
Yes, you will be. And the reality is, each of us has our own unique path and our own unique destiny. And we can only find it if we listen to ourselves. And chances are it has nothing to do with all these voices around us telling us, yes, no, be like this, be like that. They're just irrelevant.
Absolutely. They are irrelevant. And you're absolutely right, because at the end of the day, it's somebody else telling you to be how you should be. But I believe that our true versions are based on our own selves, our inner selves. So when we rely on that internal guide, then we can show up authentically because we are being who we really are. Because everybody wants to be, I want to be somebody. I want to be somebody. Why do you want to be somebody? You're already you. You. Be true because everybody else is taken. But how can you be you if you don't even know you? Yes, if you cannot sit down enough, long enough with you to be able to get to know you. So that's the I in terms of that internal compass. And once you've been able to do that, then I believe that you will have what I call sacred vision, which the S stands for. And sacred vision is when your perception and you and your perception kind of like come together. So you've got perspective, you've got perception. So when your perception and your perspective then are combined, you get what I call your sacred vision. Because it's not necessarily what you look at that matters, it is what you see that matters. You and I, Pat, could be looking at the same thing. I could be looking through that window and I could see the beautiful, beautiful sunrise. You could be looking at the same window and you could say, Julie, your window is rather dusty, is it not?
That is so true.
Exactly. So it's not what we look at that matters, it's exactly what we see. So starting to see things differently, seeing things from a clean lens. So if we change our lenses, we change our lives. That's where sacred vision comes through. That particular bump in the road, how do we see it? Do we see it as a bump? Do we see it as a redirection? Do we see it as an obstacle? Or do we consider that the obstacle is the way? And that's that. And then the last letter of the framework is E, and E is for enjoy the journey, literally.
I
That's
think
it.
that's important. I think we forget to enjoy the journey because we're so focused on an end goal that may or may not be an authentic goal for ourselves that we forget to enjoy just being here. And if you're present enough to enjoy the journey, your journey might take some detours you don't expect.
So true. So true. It may take some detours, exactly like you said, that you don't expect. But sometimes it's those treacherous parts that lead us to the most beautiful destinations. Even during that detour, just look around, look at nature, look at the squirrel, look at all the things that are happening in that moment that perhaps we wouldn't have seen without that bump in the road. Because with that bump in the road, most of us are driving on autopilot, is the route that we use all the time. So
Yeah.
we've seen it all. We know exactly what's going on. But if we bump into a bump in the road, literally, and you are redirected, you see different things and you see things differently. So different view, I think. But enjoy it.
I have a question
Yes.
regarding becoming a solicitor in England. What's involved in that? Is it different than law school in the US?
Oh, I see. That's a really good question. So here it's a lengthy process. You go to university and then you get an LLB degree. And then after you get your degree, it's normally 3 years if you're doing it full time. If you're doing it part time, it could be longer, it could be 5 years, 6 years, or however long. And then after you get your law degree, you then go to do another program called your legal practice course. At least in my day, it's changed a bit now. They've
Mhm.
got what is called SQE and all the rest of it. But long and short of it is you do your law degree, and then after that, we would do the legal practice course, which is another training at university for another 1 year full time or 2 years part time. You finish that, you still don't qualify. You have to be attached to a law practice to be able to get your training contract. And
Mhm.
that's very, very, very difficult to get a training contract. That's another 2 years if you're lucky enough to get a training contract where you work in a law firm under a solicitor who will teach you. Obviously, you learn the ropes from them. So that's practical. And then after that, you qualify as a solicitor. So there are different routes to doing it, but that's the conventional and common one.
No, I had to ask because after everything you went through and just getting to England, you did go on and become a solicitor. And
Yes.
that's just remarkable in and of itself. Um, and talk a little bit about your life as a solicitor and some of the things you did.
Yeah, sure. I would love to, love to, love to. But there's also a part of me that thought um, perhaps we don't really talk about that because there was the biggest bump of my life, the biggest bump, literally, Pat, of my life revolves around the solicitor side of things. I became a solicitor in England. I became a super successful solicitor. I was an award-winning lawyer. But not just that, I also started my own law firm here in Great Britain, which is remarkable. I loved helping people. I was an auction specialist solicitor. And then that happened, and that I think for over 15 years I did practice law. And then what I decided to do was I decided to take a little break around 2017.
Hmm.
And then I went out and I set up a community on social media to give back. I really just wanted to give back to my own community. So I thought, my journey hasn't been easy, but here I am, successful, award winning. Why don't I go and give back the knowledge that I've now got to other people who are in the position that I was, a few decades back? And then I set up a group on social media where I would help people with property investment because I'm also a successful property investor. I've got a property investment portfolio in England worth a few £1 million. So I thought I would go and help the next person do the same. But I think the mistake that I made was I thought my life was aspirational, inspirational.
Hmm.
I didn't realize that with visibility comes vulnerability. And I didn't realize that with exposure comes loads of positive things, but there are also a lot of negative things that come with that. So there were a lot of people who celebrated me. I had a group of about 6,000 people, and most of the people in that community were really, really grateful for the wisdom that I shared with him, the tips, and all the rest of it. and they were successful in buying their own properties or using other creative strategies to start their property investment journeys, which was beautiful. But you and I know that property investment is risky.
Hmm.
There's no doubt about it. So things will go wrong from time to time. So out of the 6,000 people that I helped, there were a handful of people whose deals didn't go according to plan. They faced some bumps in the road as they were. But I think the thing about bumps in the road is when you have a bump in the road, how do you take it? Do you take it as a learning exercise and then build up from it? Or do you point a finger, apportion blame? So that's exactly what happened. So these people then grouped together and they literally messaged me saying, Julie, we are going to expose you. Julie, we're going to bring you down. We are going to annihilate you, pretty much. So then they started a social media hate campaign against me. Now, that social media hate campaign, Pat, it affected me in the biggest way possible. It affected my mental well-being. It affected my family life. It affected my business life. It affected my career. My regulatory body started investigations for over 5 years. They couldn't find anything wrong. But as this war cry, as these people continued, I was taken off the roll of solicitors whilst the whole um, court trial hasn't even been. So I am not practicing as a solicitor at the moment because of that. And um, it hurts me a lot because clearly it was my childhood dream. It's something that I've wanted for such a long time. So that's been the biggest bump in the road. So earlier on this year, when I stopped practicing, I became depressed, if you will. Um, I just couldn't see I just couldn't see how I would get out of this scenario. It was almost like I lost myself because I'd always seen myself as a solicitor since I was little. So losing that was almost like losing a part of myself, a part of my identity. But also, I felt that I let a lot of people down. Like I had a whole team of people that worked with me in my business. I had to let them go. That was really painful. And I thought to myself, this is the end of me. What do I actually do? That's when I started writing my book, which is called Unbreakable. They say that it's the book that you write, that's the book that heals you. Part of my healing process was writing that book, which I call Unbreakable. And that's how I came up with that framework that I shared with you earlier, the framework called Arise. Because one dark day, I just really couldn't get out of bed. And I hadn't been able to for a long time. And I heard a voice say to me, Arise. And I said to me, Arise to do what? To go where? What for? And that's when all of that started unraveling. That's where I had to accept that I'm no longer a solicitor. I had to accept that everything that's happened has actually happened. I am where I am. I'm not where I want to be. And I had to look at it as redirection to something. At the time, I didn't know what that redirection was, Pat, because I really couldn't see the wood for the trees. That's why I had to sit with myself and listen to that still small voice, that internal compass that helped me realize that as a solicitor, all I'd ever wanted to do was justice. All I ever wanted to do was to be the voice of the voiceless. So now I'm being redirected to still be that voice, the voice of the voiceless. I'm still being redirected to be the voice of hope. That's what I've always wanted to be. So now I have moved from my career in the courtroom to my calling as a speaker. And I thank you for a platform like this where I can share my voice because this is what I do now. I give hope. I share the truth, the real, the raw, painful parts of my story. But that is the truth. And that's just that.
I think the reality is for anybody who aspires to anything and is really living their life, you hit, I think it inspires jealousy in others. I have been through something similar where I had a business fail because somebody stole intellectual property, and the cost of trying to pursue this was just astronomical. And one of the conclusions I came to, at least, was I can create, they can only steal.
Love that. That's
And
powerful.
yeah, and knowing that you don't know what's ahead, you don't know where you're going, but you know you have the ability to create. You know you have the ability to achieve whatever is the core of what you believe of yourself. You have to believe in that and move forward. And it's so hard, one step at a time, when you don't know where you're going.
It is hard. I agree. I agree with you completely. And thank you for sharing your story with me.
No, every now and then I run into somebody who has never seemed to have hit a major bump, and I can't believe that. And I wonder if they're alive. I wonder if they're conscious. But how can you go through life without bumps? And I think that the benefit of these horrendous bumps, which we hit sometimes, is that I think life is about experiencing duality to some extent: hot, cold, light, dark. And the darker and deeper and the more difficult the bumps you hit, there's an equally higher light aspirational side to it if you can see it. So it gives you such a broad range in the human experience. That is invaluable, both in terms of having confidence in yourself and being able to relate to other people wherever they are in that spectrum.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more because, like you said, relating to other people, wherever they are, because now I get it. I completely do. And I speak to people who have faced similar bumps. I can be that voice, can't I? Because I understand them now in a way that somebody else who hasn't gone through a bump in the road wouldn't be able to understand them more than somebody who is going to be talking from theoretical knowledge, from academic knowledge, that lived experience. And I can hopefully, give them the hope, give them the comfort, give them the steps, that I took, which now obviously I've got my Arise framework, which I use and I continue to use because I need it. I don't count myself to have apprehended. I'm still going through the process, which is why I'm still very, tearful about it. It is a painful experience for me, but I also want to help other people who are going through exactly the same thing. And like you said about duality, in as much as this is a very, 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 very painful thing for me, it's opened greater doors for me than I could ever have imagined. I lost a lot. I lost a lot, but I also gained a lot. I'm speaking to you. That's tremendous. I speak on loads of different stages that I never thought I would speak. Just this weekend, I was sharing the stage with Les Brown. That's a dream come true. Next week, I'm going to be doing a TED talk. That's a dream come true. So, loads of these incredible things, amazing things that I would have only literally dreamt of in my wildest imaginations. They are all happening for me now. So that situation didn't really happen to me. It happened for me. As painful as it is, I am thankful for it.
And I think you make a really important point, and that is the difference between intellectual knowledge and experiential knowledge. They're worlds apart, and the world tends to celebrate that intellectual knowledge, but it's at best it's one dimensional.
Yes, it really is. And I think it's counterintuitive for one to say that, but it's actually true. And for me, because I held on so tightly to my title, solicitor, I was very, very, very precious about that. Like I'm very educated. I am a solicitor, the academic side. But what you don't realize is that's just that. I don't underestimate that, just
Sure.
because I loved it. But I'm acknowledging what you've said, that this experiential knowledge is just worlds apart. And to my mind, it's a lot higher than what you learn, from academia.
Well, what you learn is a basis for where you go ahead, and it's important and it's a big achievement.
Yeah.
And that's why, you have the internships and the practical, aspect of your education afterwards. And that's true of any sort of profession, I think. But it's the people who have been through really tough times. Like I look out at markets and things today, and a lot of people, suggest that we're in multiple bubbles, particularly here in the States. The people I like to listen to are the people around my age who I'm 68, so I like to listen to the people who good lighting. But I like to listen to the people who have been there, done that, who've been through a few of these wild cycles and have the experience to see things. Because that experience of having lived through, say, a down market or a down time in life or whatever, is absolutely invaluable. You cannot learn it from a book. And it's ugly. It's, the proverbial sausage being made behind the scenes. But that's how you learn. That's how you start piecing things together.
Yes. I Firstly, I didn't know you're 68. You look amazing, by the way. I have to acknowledge that. You look
I
incredible.
have really good lighting on the podcast, which helps.
No, honestly, you look great. But here's the thing. You're right as rain because for me, it's that Maya Angelou saying that says, "Don't let a man with no shirt on his back offer you clothes." I think that's really powerful because if somebody doesn't have any experience, if they haven't gone through it, how are they going to teach us? So that's just that. Regardless of your education or whatever, I think we need to have the experience. And like you're saying, all these things that people are talking about, I would rather listen to somebody who's been there, somebody who's experienced it, somebody who's got, the relevant knowledge. So that's it.
Well, we relate emotionally and energetically to something like that. And that's different than just intellectual relation. And I think that we don't value this emotional resonance enough in our society because it's that emotional resonance that connects you to people, that
Mm.
connects you to their hardship, that connects you to understanding how you might even be able to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think we value it as much as we ought to, but I think it's a primary thing because if you cannot connect on that level, I don't think you are connecting from a higher level. I think it's more superficial, and I don't think those relationships could survive loads of different things. I don't think they're sustainable long term. That's the summary of it.
So, in addition to talking, where do you think you're heading?
Um, I I am talking, I am writing as well. So I am teaching people how to talk as well. But most importantly, I'm teaching people how to share their stories
Hmm.
because I believe that there's so much power in your story. And I want people to be empowered by the experiences that they've gone through. Bump in the road, whatever it is you've gone through, there's purpose to your pain. So I want people to be able to package that and then help the next person because I think we are all here for a reason. You've helped me today, and I hope that by you helping me, I also help other people. Do you see what I mean? So
Hmm.
I just think it's all like we're connected. And as long as we can all just do our little parts to help the next person. So that's where I'm going, helping people tell their stories. And that's it. Make a difference.